Good afternoon, class. Uh, as usual, I'm your guide in nursing research. Last week, we discussed some component of research or research methodology. Today, we are going to look at conceptual framework. We are going to look at conceptual framework. We are going to look at referencing the accepted systems of reference, how to cite a research in one's work, what are the reference systems available, like the Vancouver, Harvard, APA method, and MLA. Then we'll look at research hypothesis as well. So to begin with, we'll look at conceptual framework. What is conceptual framework? Conceptual framework is a set of broad ideas and principles used to structure a subsequent presentation. In every research activity is conceptualized and will be carried out within some contextual framework. You must have a context. You cannot just begin a research without a context, because if you leave it broad, people will give it different meaning. So you have to clearly conceptualize it within a particular framework. That is what conceptual framework is all about. Conceptual framework represent ways of thinking about a problem or study, or ways of representing how complex things work. It's just for you to profile a way forward about problems. You profile solution on how to solve those problems. That is why it's called conceptual framework. You are setting a target, a pace in which you want to solve a particular problem through research. Then these problems can be complex and can be otherwise. So the only way is for you to sit down, make a broad design of the research, then you try to conceptualize it to achieve it. That is what conceptual framework is all about. Then we now go into referencing system. What are referencing systems? Referencing is a standardized method of acknowledging sources of information and ideas that have been used in your assignment in a way that uniquely identifies their sources. So referencing is a standard way of acknowledging somebody's contribution and ideas that has been used, that a researcher has used to achieve his assignment, to form part of his research. In other words, you have to acknowledge the source. By acknowledging the source where you are getting a particular information, you are referencing that particular person's work. That is referencing system. One has to avoid plagiarism. Plagiarism is the use of another person's work without acknowledgement. Once you copy any literature from anybody's work without acknowledging that person, you are doing what is referred to as plagiarism. So there is nothing wrong in you referencing somebody. Yes, you can use as many textbooks, as many journals you want, but make sure anything you are copying is not your original work. Provided it's not your original work, you have to reference that person. A reference list is a list of sources that you have quoted from a cited or cited in your work. There are two different things about referencing system. Somebody's work that you copy and use in your research, that you acknowledge, meaning you cited that person, is called citing. For example, if I want to say, okay, Stephen, use programming language to achieve so thing, or I will say programming language was used by so person, provided I mention Stephen name. That is to say, I cited him in my text. Once it's cited, then you have to reference it at the end of your work. So there are two different things. There is difference between referencing and citing. Citing is for you to list the person in the work, in the statement, while you reference it after the work. Then we have 4 types of referencing system. We have the first one. These are the most. There are several types, but these are the 4 most commonly used reference system. The first one is the Vancouver style of reference, the Harvard style of reference. In Vancouver, that is the one you see if you are reading a research. Instead of them citing somebody's name, they will only use 1, 2, 3. They will only use the number of reference number at the end of the text that the person has been assigned to. So there is also what we call the APA. That is American Psychological Association. And this is the most widely accepted reference method and is the most commonly used. Then we have the MLA, that's Modern Linguistic Association. This one is mostly used by linguists, that is those studying languages. Then we take this item one after the other and explain. We'll start with Vancouver referencing system. For an article to have a Vancouver system, the following information must be noted. The first one is the author's name, followed by initials. So in Vancouver style, you have to start with the author's name, then that is the author's surname, then followed by initial. For example, Stephen AJ or Stephen KA. Those are the initial. The KA are the initial, while his surname will be Stephen. So if you use that, then you follow by title of the article, then name of the journal, then the year of publication. After the year of publication, you now put the volume number. Each journal has a number. Each journal has a number. Then you now put the page number of the article. That is what completes a Vancouver style of referencing. Then an example is Sengai M. So that is to tell you the M is the initial, while Sengai is the surname, comma, that is you have to separate if there are more than one author. Then Duani N, Marinda. Duani N, so the N is initial, while Duani is the surname. Then Marinda E. These are examples of how Vancouver referencing style is. Then follow after all you listed all the names, even if there are 10 names, their surname, then initial, you separate by comma, then you now write the title. The title maybe, let's say, predictors of loss to follow up among children in the first and second year of antiretroviral treatment in Nigeria. So then you follow by the name of the journal, which is Global Health Action. Then yeah, let's say maybe 2022, 2023, then the volume and the issue. Then you see 605, then in bracket 1, that is volume 5, issue 1. Then the page number. That is the page number in which the article appear. Is it page 30 to 40? Is it page 30 to 35? Like that. Then if this is a style where an article or a journal is involved. For example, the same Vancouver where a book is used. What you are supposed to do is the author's name first, followed by the initials, then title of the book, then place of title of the book, then place of publishing, then publisher, then year of that and edition. What edition of the book? So like that. Then if it were to be in a chapter of a book, all you need to do is the reference can include authors of chapter show name, followed by initials, then chapter title, editors of the book, show name followed by initials, that is of the editors, then title of the book, publisher, year, page number, or number of chapter. So this aside, then we go to the second one, which is the Harvard system of referencing. In Harvard system of referencing, you start with the author's name, year of publication, page number, which is an optional. Then you go into, for example, we take the journal as example. If you want to take journal as example, you list the name. For example, if there are so many, you say et al. That is, you can say Stephen et al. That is to say Stephen and others. So you don't need to list the names in this style of referencing. But in Vancouver, you have to list all the names of the authors. But in this, you only list the first one, then you follow by et al. Then you follow by year, then title of the journal, then followed by the journal's name, then page, issue, volume, and issue. Then you can also use Harvard system of referencing through online sources. You can go online, you can go to Google, or you go online through different engine search and get information. But you have to properly acknowledge or reference the source. For example, one of the sources, https://www.aaf.org/this and that. So you have to properly acknowledge the source of your information. Also, in Harvard system, you put the surname of the author, year of publication, and the numbers of pages referred to between brackets. Then in this system of citation is used, the reference at the end of the proposal should be listed in alphabetical order. This, in Harvard referencing system, the referencing are listed in alphabetical order. So you start with the one with letter A, B, C, like that, in that order. But in Vancouver referencing style, you don't start, you number them. You number them because you cite them in the work with the number. As well as the other referencing method, which is the American Psychological Association, which I said is the most widely and the most accepted method of referencing. In this method, you start with the name of author, then year of publication, then the title of the journal. After the title of the journal, the name of the journal or article, then the volume, then the page. In this method, you are also to list the reference according to the number, that is the alphabetical order, that is A, B, C. Somebody's name that starts with A, you have to start listing it like that up to the point where you reach Z. That is for American. Like I mentioned earlier, I said MLA referencing style is mostly used by Modern Linguistics Association. That is those studying linguistics. Then another thing is that I want to talk about is citation. How do you cite work in the text? If you say physics is defined as a phenomenon that relates energy and matter and their physical quantity, then if you want to, then you have to say in bracket, you put it in bracket, who stated it that way? So you are citing the person that defined physics in such manner, or chemistry, or research. If you say research is a systematic way of making findings, of closing the gap between the ideal and the future or the desired. So you have to state the person. You now say, maybe if they are more than two, you say Jamil et al. If they are only two, you say Jamil and the other person. So by doing this, you cited the person, you acknowledge the person. Then you now go to reference and list it. And that is why you are going to use either the Vancouver style of referencing, either the Harvard referencing style, or the APA, which is the American Psychological Association, or the MLA, which is the Modern Linguistic Association. Then the next thing we go into what we call hypothesis. Hypothesis, research hypothesis. Research hypothesis, in literal meaning, when you see the word hypothesis, all that will come into your mind is assumption. Because in research, you have to make assumption for you to arrive at a reasonable conclusion. So in essence, hypothesis is considered as an intelligent guess or prediction that give directional to a researcher to answer the research question. You must predict, especially for those of us that are used to questionnaire, you have to predict the likely response. For example, you develop your questionnaire so that you administer it to people. At the end, you now harvest their opinion. But while trying to develop your questionnaire, you are doing what is called hypothesis. You are guessing, you are also, but it's an intellectual guessing, because an ordinary person that is not into research will not be able to guess the way you do that. If you like, you call it predictions. These are some of this thing. Hypothesis or hypothesis, that is with IS or with ES, are defined as the formal statement of a tentative or expected prediction or explanation of the relationship between two or more variables in a specified population. You are trying to make a distinction between two variables, that is variable A and variable B, and you want to predict the expected result. You are trying to predict tentatively what is expected to come out. And in most cases, it is found to be correct. Hypothesis is mostly found to be correct. Hypothesis is derived from a research problems, literature review, and conceptual framework, which we have discussed all these three. Hypotheses in a research project logically follow literature review and conceptual framework, because for you to hypothesize, for you to predict, for you to guess, you must have reviewed somebody's work in line with your aims and objective. So for you to do this, you must properly, carefully review literature so that you know the gap that exists between your work and the other person's work. Once you identify the gap in somebody's work, then you will now be able to conceptualize. After conceptualizing, after trying to implement or achieve the set objective, then you can now make your prediction. So hypothesis, it provides clarity to the research problem and research objectives. It describes explanation or predict the expected result or outcome of the research. That is why if you are making a proposal before your final defense, you are expected to predict, to say, these are my expected results. After your title, your background of the study, aims and objectives, then statement of the problem, justification, then you are expected to say, okay, at the end of my research, it's expected that this, and this, you now itemize them, will be achieved. So it's only hypothesis that will help you in doing that, in achieving that. It also describes or explain or predict the expected result or outcome of a research. It indicates the type of research design. This hypothesis will also help you in research design. It directs the research study process. It will now give you direction in which your research will take place or will happen. Then it also identifies the population of the research study that is to be investigated or examined. So in other words, before a research is conducted, you do what we call a feasibility study. You go to the area you want to conduct research, you interact with people. From there, you now have, and this will help you. These are part of the hypothesis. It facilitates data collection, data analysis, and data interpretation. These are the three most important of any research: data collection, data analysis, and data interpretation. Without data, no research will make any meaningful meaning. No data analysis, no research will make any meaningful meaning and interpretation. Then we now go to types of hypothesis. We have the under research hypothesis, we have the research hypothesis, the null hypothesis, and the testable hypothesis. Under the research hypothesis, we have about 6 types of research hypothesis: the associative hypothesis, the causal hypothesis, the non-directional hypothesis, the directional hypothesis, the complex hypothesis, and the simple hypothesis. The first one is associative. These are collective ideas that you now bring to make your prediction. You collect ideas. It's not about one idea. It's an associative. They are related to one another. It's a collaborative ideas that you harness to form your hypothesis. Then we have the causal. This is just causal. For you to achieve a particular result, you just bring in this causal hypothesis, and we have the non-directional. The non-directional is not giving you any direction. You are doing it for a specified purpose. We have the directional, in which it will direct the pace, the direction in which your research will be conducted. Then we have the complex hypothesis. In most cases, in complex hypothesis, it's a situation whereby nobody has worked in the area. So literatures are scarce. You have to develop the hypothesis without going through any literature review. Then we have the simple hypothesis. These are prediction or guess that you don't need to any explanation. A common layman can look at it and know what you mean. Then we go to a null hypothesis. We have the simple hypothesis. As I mentioned in simple, these are simple that you don't need any explanation. You just give hypothesis, you give assumption, you give prediction based on layman language. Then you have the causal, also you have the complex hypothesis, the causal hypothesis, and the associative hypothesis in an order, because they follow a particular pattern. Then in this research hypothesis, when you say simple hypothesis, it predicts that there exists a relationship between an independent variable and the dependent variable. That is, all what simple hypothesis does is to try and show the relationship between independent and dependent variable. Example, 2-hourly position, changing of a fully bedridden patient will prevent bed sore. So every 2 hours, if you are to change position of a fully bedridden patient, it will prevent bed sore. So because of this, you already know the outcome. If you don't do this, what will happen? You are applying this to solve a particular problem. If you don't do it, will lead to harm. So in the above hourly position, that is the 2-hourly position, changing the independent variable, and the bed sore preventing is the dependent variable. Then we have the complex hypothesis. Complex hypothesis predict that there exists a relationship between two or more independent and dependent variables. In this aspect, there are two independent. There are two dependent variables. That is, you are collecting a research work that are similar to your work, but not the same. So it's more than one idea. That is why it's complex. You are bringing different ideas to make your hypothesis. Then example is a fully bedridden patient, 2-hourly position, changing in 2-hourly back here, and a high protein diet will also be built up body resistance. Then we have the directional hypothesis. Directional hypothesis predict the Directional hypothesis predict the direction of the relationship between independent and dependent variable. This one is just to give you direction in which your hypothesis will be based on. For example, high quality of nursing education will lead to high quality of nursing practice skills. So it's telling you the more you give your student high quality teaching, that is to say, the expected result, what you are expecting at the end of it, or your prediction is high quality nursing professional. Once the teaching and research is very okay, then at the end of it, you will now get a good professional. The outcome will be the graduate will be of high standard. Then we have the non-directional hypothesis. The non-directional hypothesis predicts the relationship between independent variable and the dependent variable, but does not specify the direction of the relationship. So you hardly know the outcome. You only predict whether you are wrong or right. Then we have the causal hypothesis. In causal hypothesis, it predicts a cause and effect relationship or interaction between independent variable and the dependent variable. In this independent variable is the experimental or treatment variable. The dependent variable is the outcome of variable. Then we have the associative hypothesis. The associative hypothesis, it predicts an associative relationship between the independent variable and the dependent variable. When there is a change in any of the variable, it changes also affect the other variable. Whether there is changes because they are related to one another. So it's trying to show the relationship between two variables, that is the independent and the dependent. So once one is affected, the two variables will also be affected. Then we go to the null hypothesis. It's also called the statistical hypothesis because this type of hypothesis is used for statistical testing and statistical interpretation. The null hypothesis, when you say null, that is zero hypothesis. It predicts that there is no relationship between the independent variable and dependent variable. Example, nasogastric tube feeding does not alter body temperature. So it has no any relationship. These are predictions that has no any relationship with the variables. We have under the null hypothesis, we have the simple, the causal, like that, the testable, all this. Then we go to theoretical or conceptual framework, like we have discussed earlier. All this is trying to show you that your findings of the previous study may be used for framing the hypothesis for another study. That is to say, the most important source of hypothesis are the theoretical concept frameworks developed for the study. Through a deductive approach, these hypotheses are drawn from theoretical conceptual framework for testing them. For example, if you say Roy's adoption model is used in a research study where a hypothesis can be drawn from a concept of a theoretical mode that patient's adoption to a chronic illness depends on availability of social support for them. Yes, social support can go a long way in helping chronic ailment. When somebody is having HIV and you are coming to tell him, sorry, you are going to die. So you are telling that person that the theory you are bringing is devastating. So even if somebody is on bed sick, on death's bed, all you need to do is say, sorry, may God heal you. You give him that courage. So these are the way in which theoretical or conceptual frameworks are formed. In academics, especially in academic literature, they are based on formal theories and empirical studies. Evidence, experience, observation, and conceptualization of academia. This literature may serve as good sources for formulating hypotheses for research studies. So in this regard, if you want to, there is what we call academic literatures, and there are other literatures. Academic literatures are those literatures that are published. They are publish work that in a reputable journal, that is in a peer reviewed journal. They are not literatures that are published anyhow, that you see anywhere. They are purely for academic purpose, and that is why they form the basis in which your hypothesis and conceptual framework are built. Then the next thing is, what is research objective? Research objective, it summarizes what is to be achieved by the researcher or by the study. Research objective summarizes what is to be achieved by the researcher or by the study. For example, where are you going? I'm going to the market. That is a research answer. So you walk towards the marketplace the person is going. If you are not certain of where you are going, you may well end up somewhere else. So if you are not sure of where you are going, meaning you are a taxi, no garage. So in research, we don't believe in that. You must have a set objective that you want to achieve. You must have objective must be smart. Must be smart. That is what we call smart. Your objective must be smart, must be simple, must be achievable, must be like that, in that order. Importance of developing objective. The first importance is focus on the study. Avoid the collection of unnecessary data. When you are overwhelmed with so many data, you end up having a bad result. But when your data are reasonable, you end up achieving a lot. It's not how large the data is, but it's how well the objective is being set. Then facilitate the development of research methodology and help to orient the collection, analysis, and interpretation utilization of data. This will help for evaluating the research project. Types of objective. We have the general objective, we have the specific objective. The general objective, what is expected to be achieved by the study is general. That is general, is not specific. Should be clearly related to statement of the problem. While in specific objective, breaking down the objective into smaller, logically connected parts. This, you now split your objective to achieve a specific target. So how to write the general objective? General objective, you will write the general objective should be closely related to the problem statement. What are the problems you want to solve? So your objective should be tailored towards achieving that objective. Then, for example, low utilization of, let's say, expanded polio immunization. When there is no low utilization, these are general statements. General objective to identify the reason for low utilization of expanded polio immunization. Then how to write the specific objective. One, you have to focus each on 5 objective, cover a simple point or data. The first one is it must be ordered in a logical sequence. We don't put associated factor before prevalence. In research, you don't do that. All you need to do is you must be orderly. It must be in an ordered manner. Then it must be realistic. It must be realistic and feasible to answer. Then it will also be operational using action verbs such as determine, verify, identify, describe, access, compare, calculate, establish, explore. I want to explore the source of groundwater within a basement complex. I want to investigate. I want to identify the basement complex in Mina. These are specific objective. I mentioned earlier, I said objective must be smart. One is objective must be specific, must be measurable, must be achievable, must be realistic, and must be time bound. Objective must be what? Smart, specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time bound. You must be specific to know where you are going, to know what you want to achieve. It must be measurable. It must be something you can achieve within a specific method. Then it must be achievable, so that you look at it. Is it going to harm other people? If I'm to continue with this, how am I going to achieve it? Is it achievable? Then realistic. It must be realistic. Don't just go into research because you just want to conduct a research. No, your research must be realistic, must be geared towards solving a problem. Then it must have a time limit. If you don't have a time frame, then that research is bound to be a failure. We'll call it a day. Next week, God's willing, we'll continue, and I'm going to give you assignment on how to develop a research topic. So what I'm trying to say in essence, you are expected to write a research topic, just like a proposal, a research topic, just the topic on what you want to achieve with this post basic. Just get a topic. Don't just go and copy anyhow. If you do that, I'm going to tell you what to do next. So for now, you are expected to forward to your class rep. She will collect, and send it to me. So you are expected to write a good research topic. Thank you and have a lovely day. Goodbye.